Good afternoon, fellow members of my declassified Caribbean news channel. Thank you so much for joining. Now, this afternoon, we are going to be looking at another topic, which is iSpeed, right? We understand that iSpeed is in the Caribbean. And I'm going to title this show this afternoon, iSpeed or iShowSpeed is turning Caribbean culture into content. And nobody's saying it. That is what we are. Are we objects or are we just content? Even though what I'm making now is content, but what are we being reduced to at a time when we're having lots of things happening in the geopolitical world? Our Caribbean citizens are distracted. And when you see these things happening, we know that iSpeed is controlled by some of these powers that be. You can say, oh, yeah, he's streaming and he's making money off YouTube and other streaming platforms. But it's more than that. These people are made to distract you from the real issues. So while he's hopping, and Caribbean hopping and doing his thing, you must understand that there's no value that is being added to you as to whom has the best KFC and who has the best vibes and the best culture in general. That has nothing to do with anything that is happening in the world at the moment. In Trinidad, in Jamaica, in Grenada, in all of these Caribbean countries, I understand, for example, that there is friction, continued friction between Guyana and Venezuela over the Essequibo region. Organese talking about that. And if iSpeed was more intelligent, if he wanted to help the Caribbean and to promote Caribbean culture and thinking, then he should have brought these critical questions as he interacted with the people. But what he was carrying on with some childish teenager shenanigans, right? And that is not going to help the Caribbean at this moment, right? We are in a prickle. And Trinidad, the violence continues unabated. And don't tell me that we needed a break. Break from what? Because we are in a moment of very deep crisis, profound crisis, the profundity of which I have never seen in a long, long time. But because we're so entertained by our phones, by video games, we find ourselves now in a constant mode of entertainment. It's a drug, and it's almost like we cannot grasp the reality. We are in this altered sense of consciousness, and that is what these content creators are bringing to you. Excellent. I'm sure that YouTube is an excellent platform in the sense that it's now the new Hollywood and the TikToks and so forth, because you watch content that just merely entertains you. The senseless content that I see on YouTube and the hundreds and of thousands of views, that is what is going to make you unsuccessful. That is what is going to make you the world more dangerous because people are not attuned to substance. And that is the problem. We need now to get back to substance, and that is what we lack at the moment. So iSpeed is mocking Caribbean culture for views. Wake up. That is the essence of what I'm saying today. iShowSpeed is one of the biggest streamers in the world, but what is he really showing the Caribbean? At just 21 years old, Speed has built massive wealth and influence through viral content, chaos, and entertainment. But when he enters Caribbean spaces, is he representing the culture or reducing it to clips for clicks? In this video, we break down who iSpeed really is, the class he represents in the global content economy, how Caribbean identity is being packaged for entertainment, while nobody in the region is seriously questioning it. Is this exposure or exploitation? That is what we have to. And there's nothing more entertaining and acceptable among Caribbean citizens when it comes on to global reach, right? And global views. We like to be shown and to be seen. And to some extent, that is for people of African descent too. We love that when people are saying wonderful things about us, perhaps even if they're not saying wonderful things about us. The fact that we're seeing ourselves on the global stage. And is that a sign that we lack identity? We're going through an identity crisis because no one has to really value you if you value yourselves. No one has to affirm you if you affirm yourself. That is what you need to understand. If you have a strong sense of identity, if you have liberated yourselves from mental slavery, which many of us in the Caribbean region still has not emancipated ourselves or minds from mental slavery. And notice what Marcus Garvey said, none but ourselves can do it, right? A job won't do it. The location in which you are won't do it. An entertainment, a celebrity won't do it. You've got to do it for yourselves. And many of us are not reading enough. So because of that, our minds are not emancipated. So we are running after iShowSpeed and whatever he represents or whomever he represents. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's sharing clips. But nobody is asking the real question. Is iShowSpeed turning Caribbean culture into a joke for views? iShowSpeed, one of the most powerful internet personalities in the world, is in the Caribbean right now. At just 21 years old, he has built millions, yes, millions, through streaming, reactions, and chaotic entertainment. And might I say, chaotic, right? But let's be very clear. Speed is not just an individual, he represents a class. A new global class of digital entertainers who are brainless, who turn culture into content and content into money. Okay? And because we have a lot of brainless people in the world, including in the Caribbean region, then we find ourselves being fooled and being entertained by what this young man has to show us. And, you'll go out of the way to entertain him on senseless matters. Okay? So let's look at one of the things that came up, and I'll just show you in which he's talking about our food. And guess what? Guess what food he's talking about in terms of highlighting KFC, right? That is what he's highlighting. Is KFC Caribbean food or is it American food? Is he promoting, marketing KFC whilst KFC is actually, giving you disease, right? And you're becoming obese? Okay? What is happening in the Caribbean region? Why are we allowing the lowest level of American culture to infiltrate the region? I don't know, I don't understand, and I don't know where we're going with that. So let's look at what he's saying and what he's eating it seems here that he probably is eating something Trinidadian though, but he suggests that, Trinidad has the best food up to the part that for all the Caribbean countries that he has visited so far. I think he's been to Grenada, he's been to Barbados, he's been to St. Lucia, Dominica, right? I'm not sure if he has yet reached the Dominican Republic. I think he is headed to Jamaica as we speak. But these are the hilarious things that he is about. Let me see if I can find something here. Yeah, let us look at the accent where people are having, he's having time. Are these things staged or are they just there for, as you say? Let me see if I could get. Yeah. Okay, let me see if I could get back this to you. So let me show you chaos here. Okay, so let me see what he's saying here. First of all, these people don't even speak standard English themselves. But let's look at what these guys are saying here. I think he is in Barbados and they're saying that iSpeed might not be understanding how the Barbadian speaks. Oh, let me see if I could rush it back up here, turn on the volume or turn up. Wait, was it from Smash? Well, how do you feel? Being from Smash on the phone. Yeah, when I beat WrestleMania. Yeah. How do you feel? I feel good, baby. I feel good. I don't know what he's at. How you feeling? I'm from Smash. So this is. Let me see if I could get to another one. another of these senseless videos. He's here talking about the food.
Where's the best food so far? Turn it down. Totally fine. No problem. Okay. I don't care nobody there. Where's the best?
All right, so that is one. Let me see if I could give you another. There was another thing with the pronunciation of the word water. He's saying, yeah, I think, is it this? No, it might not be this. Sorry. Yeah, this is a sort of idiocy that this young man is bringing to the Caribbean, and the Caribbean people are entertained by his level of idiocy, and the nonsensical, I should say, behavior that he is demonstrating at 21 years old, behaving like a teenager. But that is, let me see if this is what I was saying here about the water. But essentially, what we have to understand is that we are living in this grand world of entertainment that is going to allow us to lose our culture and sell us right back into slavery because we like to be sold in terms of our cultural artifacts. Speed represents the attention economy, not education, not cultural depth, not historical understanding. Attention, the louder, crazier, more exaggerated the behavior, the more views, the more money, the more influence. And let me just say something to you. Many of you think a channel's success is by views and through the number of subscribers. Often not, because the entire YouTube platform is controlled by the CIA. So obviously that when they're giving you content, and the more successful a lot of time the content person is, it's the more that they are connected, and that is what they want you to know. That is what you have to understand. That we, as a world now, in the world in which we live, we think quality depends on the number of subscribers, and it often is not. Some of my best videos are videos that have not gotten any views at all, or not many views. And the ones that I didn't find to be of any great substance are the ones that YouTube sends out. The ones that you're saying, oh, excellent video. And I'm like, okay, it's okay, but it's not the best that I have dispatched. Okay? But this is how the world is because the entire people, they don't want you to think. So the louder, the crazier, more exaggerated the behavior, the more views, more money, the more influence. And when that models enters into the Caribbean, it doesn't adapt to the culture. It reshapes the culture into something clickable. Okay, so now look carefully at what happens in these clips. The accents become exaggerated, the behavior becomes performative, the environment becomes a backdrop. The Caribbean is no longer a place with history, struggle, and identity. It becomes a stage, a set, a vibe, right? And he's suggesting that St. Vincent has the best vibe so far. And that might seem harmless until you realize something. Millions of people around the world will now think that that is the Caribbean. That's all we have to offer. A blind set of people running after some senseless streamer. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people in the Caribbean are celebrating it. Why? And including adults. I thought it would have been just flocked by teenagers, senseless, brainless teenagers, but I see adults there too running and behaving in that same manner. Why? Because it brings attention, it brings views, it feels like global recognition, but attention without control is not power. I repeat that. Attention without control is not power, it's exposure without ownership. Very important that you understand that. And I saw this Jamaican guy, and give him his props. He was suggesting that Jamaicans are not going to be enamored by iShowSpeed. The only reason why they will flock him is because of use. They want to be associated with, because they say anybody who's associated with iShowSpeed, they're definitely going to become viral. And the Jamaicans, the content creators, are seeking virality, right? They want to go viral. And that is the whole reason why they'll be flocking him. But they're not interested in iShowSpeed. Because what does iShowSpeed represent? Speed can fly in, take millions of content or off content, and leave. The people in those videos, they don't control the platform, they don't control the narrative, and they definitely don't control the money. So ask yourself, who really benefits from this? Certainly not the Caribbean. This is bigger than iShowSpeed. This is about how the Caribbean is being seen by the world and whether we are defining ourselves or being turned into content by someone else. If you're seeing what I'm seeing, share this video because this conversation is not happening enough. And if you want me to go on a live, you can just say live and we can talk about this because this is something that we need to speak about more in depth, right? And more thoroughly how the Caribbean countries, the cultures of the Caribbean are being recolonized and they are being recolonized subtly. Sometimes we think that when we talk about recolonization, it has to be what with some white man doing, but Black people do that too, right? That is what you've got to understand. Okay? That Black people work with Europeans, work with what you call white people to recolonize you as well. Okay? So you are embracing, maybe if it were a white person, you probably perhaps would not have embraced him that much. I don't know. But now that a Black person is sent, okay, with no brain, then that is a person that you are going to accept. And it says a lot about us when we're running after this young man. It says how much we have in the brain. But this is what we have in the Caribbean. And that's why we've already lost the battle. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to continue to say that. We've lost the battle because people are no longer able to think and they run after people like themselves who just don't have any brain. This is my take on the matter. I think we need to get our acts together and begin to say that if you want to come to the Caribbean space, but come and be ready to learn about who we are as a people, what we think about very important issues. I'm not saying that you can't, go running and having some entertainment. And what was he doing, for example, in Barbados when he jumped that counter in KFC? Now, do you think you own Barbados iShowSpeed, where you can just jump the counter of the, at a KFC outlet and think, who are you? And I think that the Barbadians did put him in his place and say, you can't do that, right? That is disgraceful for him to have done. But it could be, again, a show. Who knows? It could have been scripted. I don't know if it were. Because everything right now in the world is scripted, including the wars that are being waged. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Like the video so the video can be shared with as many people on the platform. See you in another one. Ciao.